So we are here with Carina Gallo, longtime ExCo supporter and ally, and who was in our critical active pedagogy teaching learning community last semester. It's where we first met you. So thank you so much for being here with me for our CAT number 5, 5th newsletter for the semester. Will you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, I'm Carina Gallo. So I am in the Department of Criminal Justice Studies here at San Francisco State University, and I teach courses on jails and prisons, comparative criminal justice, terrorism, political warfare, and research methods. And for me as a teacher, I can say I've been a teacher for almost my whole adult life. I started as a substitute teacher in a junior high school when I was around 20 years old. And that was back in Sweden, where I'm from. And after that, I worked in different settings with education. I studied to be a social worker, and then became a director of a nonprofit where I was responsible for the education of volunteers. And I've been teaching in higher education since 2006 and at SF State since fall 2018.
Oh, sorry, when did you move from Sweden?
Yes, I came to the United States in 2007 when I was doing my PhD.
Aha.
Yes.
And you stayed.
I did, yes. I actually fell in love with San Francisco the first day I came here. I felt that this is where I want to live. I have traveled a lot in my life. I lived in South America before, and yeah, I love traveling and meeting new people. So, but this was the first time I felt, wow, the first day, this is where I want to stay.
Amazing. So you have a lot of different teaching experience at a lot of different levels. Originally, why did you want to teach?
Well, so as I mentioned, my doctorate is actually I work in the Department of Criminal Justice Studies, but my background, my doctorate is actually in social work. So at Stockholm University, I was at the Department of Social Work and also at the Department of Criminology there. And as a social worker, a true social worker, I've always been interested in social change and activism, and also working with others to make a difference. And for me, teaching is just that. So I use teaching as a tool for social justice. So my goal with every course and every class that I teach is to prepare students to think critically about how our society responds to social problems, and also how we can better serve more marginalized individuals and communities.
Okay, so teaching is just the means to the end for you of social justice.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
I love that. Thinking more of yourself as a learner and kind of, self-reflexively, probably some of your motivation to teach, but how would you describe yourself as a learner?
So yes, I am a lifelong learner. I love any type of learning. And I do start every course with the expectation that I'm going to learn as much from the students that they will learn from me and from each other. My goal is always to create a community of learners, which also includes myself, of course. And it is also a great opportunity for me to grow all the courses. And I'm always amazed by hearing the rich experiences that the students have. And I sometimes talk about these pedagogical alliances. I have written a little bit about that also, that I do think that creating learning experiences where the experiences of the instructor mirror the students' learning experiences, they can create these different roles where both the instructor and the students are co-creators of the learning experiences.
Wow, pedagogical alliance. I love that idea.
One of my absolute favorite things are when I hear back from former students and they tell me about the difference that they're making in the world and their careers and how their lives have progressed. And I also learn, I mean, for myself also, I really love the learning that goes into preparing a class and also teaching a class and staying current about important topics and what is going on in the world. And also another thing that I really like, because I have a lot of guest speakers and we do service learning, we do field trips, and you know, to open up the classroom to the wider world. And I'm always so excited about the connections that I get to make in each of the courses and learn from people in the field. So yeah, I would say that those are my favorite thing that I can think about right now.
Yeah, and then we have to reframe that within a remote learning context because we've all been bounced online. What is what's one of your greatest successes and breakthroughs generally and in remote learning?
I would say generally for me was when I started to work and learn more intentionally about democratic and inclusive learning. I think I always been that kind of teacher and incorporated that more implicitly, but when I started to work and learn about it more, that was a big breakthrough for me. So one example was when I took all my teaching material, the syllabus and everything that I worked with in my teaching, and I revised the language to make it more horizontal. So for example, you and I talked about that before, right? That instead of using words like assignment, which is more of a top-down kind of concept, I use learning experiences and colleagues instead of peers. So I went through all my teaching material and looked that I had this more horizontal perspective on learning. And yeah, I would say I've been working with remote learning for many years. So I have quite a lot of experience there. But when I started with that and getting back again to this, the idea of inclusive learning, what one breakthrough for me was that we can use technology as a way of making learning more inclusive. For example, that students that normally don't speak up in class or are more analytical, that they actually get a chance to go home and think about things and write in a written discussion forum. So that was when I started with remote learning and incorporating more technology in my courses. That was a big breakthrough for me, that oh wow, we can really use this as a tool to make learning more inclusive and democratic. Yes.
Yeah, great. I'm curious, when was that turning point for you when you went back and revised all of your materials to incorporate more inclusive language?
Yeah, that was in about 2 years ago when I learned. So I used, it's actually a group of faculty at SF State that have designed a social justice syllabus tool. So they basically give you a tool on how to revise your material, which is amazing. And also one thing that I also did that is from the tool is that to make sure that you have diverse voices represented in your course material. So I included a bio for all the people that for the material that I had in the course. And that also, I think, made a big difference. And it was also a check on myself that I did include a diverse set of voices in my courses.
Yeah, so you're definitely part of a larger wave at SF State of really teachers and faculty becoming a lot more conscious of social justice and of all the way down to the language in our syllabus. And
yeah, and I mean, for example, in my jails and prison class, I then included text from formerly incarcerated people, not only scholars and also practitioners. And yeah, so you can use this in a range of different, I mean, also related to gender and to race and all these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have started picking up language like learning activities instead of assignments through our interactions last semester. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
In what ways are your courses, teaching, and or your mentorship to your students really meeting the moment, however you would describe this current social moment we're all in?
Well, I would say that one thing that is characteristic of all my teaching is that I have a global perspective, which I think is very important right now. That, like they say, there's nothing like travel to broaden our mind, and I love traveling myself. But I think learning about other people and learning about other countries and cultures, it can really enhance critical thinking, and also. I think this can also invoke a desire to also learn to relate to others that are unlike us, which I think is also particularly important in these times.
Yeah, important at all times, but especially these times. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've been a part of the SF State community for quite a while, and then a part of, like I said, this wave or this new consciousness towards social justice teaching. How would you describe the SF State community more generally, and why is that so important to you and your students and yourself?
It's amazing. I participate in both in CEDAW and also academic technology. I have done both. I mean the workshops and also the individual consultations. And I always say that coming out from an individual consultation from academic technology is like getting a $300 individual private lesson because the people, it's really top notch. And I've learned so much from the people there. We really, and I can say this without any hesitation, have the best people working there. And I have learned. And I thought when I started at SF State, I thought, oh, I've been teaching for so long, I know this, but I clearly didn't. So that really shows that you always have something to learn. We also have an amazing community in our college, in the Health and Social Science, College of Health and Social Sciences. We have faculty learning community there, also with my colleagues there, that also have been really amazing.
That's great. Definitely helping us all, in this culture of learning. We're so helpful to all of us. Well, that leads me to the next question. I want to emphasize more and more for ExCo teachers that the implicit nature of inquiry in any kind of teaching. So what questions do you still have about teaching?
So, yes, I think the bigger question that I have right now is that how is teaching going to look after this pandemic? That is, I think, that what is on my mind the most now. I mean, and I think there are reasons to be deeply worried about both the state of higher education and the state of public education right now. And we had this incident at SF State, right, that where Zoom canceled one of our events. And it really shows how vulnerable education and higher education is to corporate control, especially when it's remote. And it's going to be interesting to see how teaching and higher education is going to look like after this pandemic. So I would say that that's the biggest question that's on my mind right now.
Yeah, corporate control and the political wills and whims and all of that as well. Yes. Yeah, funding issues, budget crises, all of the above, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, maybe on a more hopeful note, thinking about the content of your course and how you teach with your students and how your students teach with you, in what ways are your courses kind of making change either at SF State or in the consciousness of your students or in the larger society?
Well, so as we all know, the California's correctional system, we have long it's deeply problematic and needs reform and innovative alternatives to the current strategies. And I mean, I hope that my classes, in some sense, for our students that hopefully, or not hopefully, that will be the future leaders of US and California crime policy, that this will open their mind and kind of the realm of possibility of how we treat people who are incarcerated for crime. So that's the biggest goal for in my courses, in terms of making a change in society.
Yeah, right, great. Well, thank you very much for your time, Carina. Can I just ask you, what advice might you give a future ExCo teacher, a student who wants to teach for ExCo?
To continue learning, because we have to model, right? If we want other people to learn, we have to be the role models and be continuous learners ourselves.
Great last words. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.